Fresh herbs are the most nutrient-dense greens around. Now, they're also some of the most contaminated, so you do want to purchase organic. And then once you buy them, there are a variety of ways to store them so that they're ready and handy for all of your meals. Let's start with parsley. Okay, so I've got some parsley here. I actually already dunked it in some water and swished it around. And then I put it in a vase and I just leave it on my counter. Number one, it's a reminder to me that it's right there and ready to use. And so I can just break off a piece and add it as a little garnish to whatever dish I'm serving. Or I can, since it's already washed, just take some and chop it up and I'm ready to go. So that makes it pretty simple. And in fact, parsley likes to be at room temperature. It doesn't really like to be in the refrigerator. Although if you want to take it colder, you can flash freeze it. And I'll do that in just a moment. We'll set that aside for now. And then let's go to cilantro. A lot of people really like cilantro, but boy, after just a few days in the refrigerator, it can get all slimy and, you know, it's wasted. So what I like to do with it, there are a couple of things. First of all, get rid of the little rubber band or the wire that's wrapped around it. And you can actually just not wash it or anything, but just undo the whatever is wrapped tight around it, put it back in your baggie, fold it up loosely, and store it in your refrigerator just like this. And it will actually stay for, you know, 3 or 4 days like that. At least it's a little better than leaving it all together. Now, you can also store it like the parsley in a vase. And so if you want to do that, you just stick the stems into a cup with some water in it. Use your little baggie from the store and cover it up. Kind of like they do flowers when they're sitting in the refrigerator at the store. And then you can set that in the refrigerator. And that works really good, keeping it fresh for quite a while, as long as you don't accidentally tip it over and spill the glass of water all over the refrigerator, which I've done a number of times. So what I actually like doing the most with my cilantro, and with most of my herbs now actually, is to flash freeze them. So I'm going to do that with this bunch of cilantro. So first of all, I want to wash it off. So you can just run it under water in the sink or just dunk it in some water, swish it around, and get rid of any of the leaves that might be, you know, starting to turn black or yellow. I'm going to shake that off. And if you have a salad spinner handy, you could shake it off that way, spin it, but I don't. So I'm just going to lay them on a tea towel, kind of jelly roll them up, and just give it a nice little, just a gentle little press here to get the excess water out of the way. And then I get a cookie sheet and I put a piece of parchment paper on it, or some wax paper on it would work as well. And I'm going to take this whole batch of herbs. Well, I might, actually might trim off the very end of the stems. I didn't do that yet, but just the last inch or so, because the stems are perfectly edible. So I leave most of them on. Okay, so I'm going to spread it out in just a thin layer on this cookie sheet, like such. And I'm going to put it in my freezer for about 30 minutes or so until they are completely frozen. Now you can do that with parsley as well. You can do that with dill, with green onions. You can do it with basil, but the basil does turn a darker, almost a black, but it still works. These other greens will they'll stay green. They'll turn darker, but they'll stay green, if that makes sense. So if I wanted to flash freeze some parsley, and remember I've already washed this, so I am going to cut off the very ends of the stems. It just saves room, makes more space on the cookie sheet. And again, I'm going to spread them out so that they, you know, they're not a real thick layer. It's just a nice thin layer of the parsley, stems and all, voila, and then put it in the freezer to flash freeze for about 30 minutes. I'm just going to set it right on top of the cilantro. So, got a couple of cookie sheets in their freezer that are going to be freezing, and we will check back on them in just a little while. Okay, it's been probably about an hour now. Let's take a peek at the herbs. First one out is the cilantro. So what I'll do now is just take that parchment paper and kind of scrunch it up. Try and get it where you can see better here. But basically, I just want to scrunch up all the leaves. And they'll naturally start to break apart. And then I will take all of those, see, they're all just little frozen little cilantro leaves. I'm going to put them into a container. And then you do want to make sure that you label your herbs, because you might remember what they are now, but once they're in the freezer, they all look alike. So I would fill up a container. Looks like I'm probably going to fill up a couple of containers. Pop my lid on it and then put it back in the freezer. That way they're ready to go. When I want to use some, I'll just reach into my little container, grab out a handful or 2 handfuls, whatever I need, and it's ready to go. Okay, so that was cilantro. Now let's do the parsley. So parsley I treat just a little differently because I don't particularly want to eat the stems on parsley. I just want the leaves. So what I'll do here is pick up the stems, which are frozen, and I can just slide the leaves right off. Super simple. Okay, you just stripping the leaves off. Stems can go in the compost. So I'll do that with all of my parsley, and you just want to work quick because it's easy to do when they're frozen, but if you were to leave them out for 5 or 10 minutes and they would start to thaw, it wouldn't be nearly as easy to just strip the leaves off. So anyway, I will do this for the whole batch, put it in my container, put the lid on it, label it that it's parsley because it doesn't look any different than the cilantro. So those are the 2 herbs that I demonstrated today. So let's just see what else I have in the freezer, give you an idea of everything else that you can flash freeze as well. So I have, in addition to those things, let's see here. I'm just gonna grab what I've got. All right, so I've got some red peppers from when they were on sale. Same thing, I chopped the red peppers, spread them out on the cookie sheet, and then once they were frozen, put them in the jar. So I can just scoop in with a spoon and get just exactly, how much I want. What else I have? Oh, I only have a tiny bit left here, but as you can see, this is celery that's in, which I buy when the organic celery is on sale. Chop it up, flash freeze it, put it in my baggie here, and then when I want to make a quick soup, I've got it already chopped up, and it's great. This is some of the kale. I think I told you about that in another video. You can do kale the same way. See, it's just flash frozen. I can scoop out a couple of handfuls, again, to throw in a soup or a stew, or I could just steam some and have a really quick side dish. What else did I do here? Oh, I did not label this. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's something good. And then these were sunchokes that I got a bunch out of my sister's garden, so I flash froze a bag full, and I can just pick a few out. Again, toss them in my soups and stews. The flash frozen vegetables and herbs, they don't work great on things like salads because they don't look quite as pretty and have that crunchiness that truly fresh would. But in anything cooked or blended, like your guacamole, your chicken salads, things like that, all of these things work just fine. And it turns out that you can flash freeze almost anything.